My name is Polly, 35 years old, and I worked my entire adult life to afford my beautiful lake house in northern Michigan. The down payment came partly from what my grandparents left me, but every mortgage payment comes from my real estate commissions. I never imagined my own family would betray me so completely over this property. Last month, I drove up unexpectedly for a weekend getaway, only to find my sister Diana blocking the doorway. "There is no room for you here," she sneered. "Sleep in your car." If you are watching this right now, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and let me know in the comments where you are watching from. My story might just save your relationships. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Our family was not wealthy, but my parents, Margaret and Thomas, provided a comfortable life for us. From an early age, I noticed the dynamic between me and my older sister Diana was strained. 3 years my senior at 38, Diana always viewed life as a competition. When I got an A on a test, she needed an A+. When I made the volleyball team, she had to become team captain. This constant one-upmanship continued well into our adult years. My younger brother Kenneth, now 32, and I used to be close. We would spend hours building snow forts in winter and catching fireflies during summer evenings. As we grew older, though, Kenneth gravitated toward Diana. Perhaps it was easier to align with her forceful personality than to stand up to her. By the time we reached adulthood, Kenneth had become Diana's most loyal supporter. My career path was not easy. I worked multiple jobs through college, graduating with a business degree and minimal debt. Breaking into real estate during the market crash proved challenging. I remember months of ramen noodles and postponed bill payments while I built my client base. Slowly but surely, my persistence paid off. Within 5 years, I had established myself as one of the top producing agents in my firm. During those difficult early years, my maternal grandparents Robert and Eleanor were my biggest supporters. They believed in me when even my parents expressed doubts about my career choice. Grandpa Robert taught me about responsibility and financial planning, while Grandma Eleanor showed me how to maintain dignity during life's challenges. When they passed away within months of each other, they left each grandchild a modest inheritance. Diana and Kenneth immediately spent theirs on luxury items, a new car for her, and an elaborate gaming setup for him. I saved mine for 3 years, combining it with my commission savings for a substantial down payment on my lake house. The property was not extravagant, a 3-bedroom cottage on Lake Michigan with a small dock and gorgeous sunset views. To me, it represented everything I had worked for, tangible proof that my determination had paid off. The first summer after purchasing the lake house, I enthusiastically hosted family gatherings. I wanted to share my joy and success with everyone. Those initial weekends seemed perfect, with barbecues on the deck and evening bonfires by the water. My parents expressed pride in what I had accomplished. Kenneth enjoyed fishing from the dock, and even Diana seemed genuinely happy for me. That honeymoon period ended quickly. I noticed how family members began overstaying their invitations. A weekend visit stretched into a full week without discussion. I would return from work trips to find dirty dishes piled in the sink, wet towels moldering on bathroom floors, and furniture mysteriously rearranged. Once I discovered a baseball-sized hole in the living room wall that Kenneth casually attributed to roughhousing with the guys during what was supposed to be a quiet fishing weekend. When I attempted to establish some basic rules, the atmosphere changed dramatically. I created a shared calendar for scheduling visits and asked that everyone clean up after themselves. These reasonable boundaries were met with surprising resistance. "Why are you being so uptight about your house?" Diana asked during a tense family dinner. "It is practically family property anyway, since you used Grandma and Grandpa's money to buy it." "Yeah," Kenneth chimed in. "You would not even have this place without the inheritance. The rest of us should get to enjoy it too." My parents, rather than supporting my position as the legal homeowner, tried to mediate in ways that fundamentally undermined my authority. "Polly, sweetie," my mother said, "family shares with family. Your grandparents would want everyone to enjoy their legacy." Their revisionist history stunned me. My inheritance had covered less than 20% of the down payment. The rest came from my savings, and the mortgage remained solely in my name. Yet somehow in their minds, my lake house had transformed into communal family property. By the end of that first year, I made the difficult decision to limit access to my home. I created a formal scheduling system, requiring advance notice before visits and limiting stays to 2 nights unless specifically arranged otherwise. This structure, necessary for protecting my investment and sanity, created a fissure in our family dynamics. Diana began referring to me as the landlord in a tone dripping with resentment. Kenneth would make pointed comments about how I had changed since becoming a property owner. My parents, conflict-averse as always, tried to smooth things over without addressing the fundamental issue: respect for my boundaries and property rights. Despite the tension, I tried maintaining family connections. I hosted holiday gatherings, helped my parents with household projects, and attended my nieces' and nephews' birthday parties with thoughtful gifts in tow. Yet the undercurrent of resentment about the lakehouse restrictions flowed beneath every interaction, gradually eroding our relationships. Little did I know that behind my back plans were already forming that would betray my trust in ways I could never have imagined. The first hint that something was amiss came during a January visit to the lakehouse. Michigan winters transform the landscape into a quiet wonderland, and I occasionally drove up for peaceful weekends of reading by the fireplace while watching snow fall on the frozen lake. Upon arrival that Friday evening, I noticed several small discrepancies. The thermostat was set to 68 degrees, though I always turned it down to 55 when leaving. A different brand of coffee than what I purchased sat on the kitchen counter. The cushions on my couch were arranged differently than how I left them. Each oddity on its own seemed minor, easily attributed to forgetfulness on my part. Together, they formed a pattern that left me feeling unsettled. I called my friend Audrey that evening, voicing my suspicions. "Am I being paranoid?" I asked. "Or does it seem like someone has been in my house?" Audrey, practical and direct as always, suggested I review my security camera footage. The system I had installed covered the front entrance and back deck primarily for monitoring during my absences. The footage confirmed my fears. 3 weekends prior, when I was attending a real estate conference in Chicago, my security cameras captured Diana, Kenneth, and several friends unloading coolers and overnight bags. They had used keys to enter my home and stayed the entire weekend. My hands trembled as I forwarded through hours of footage showing people I barely recognized, lounging on my furniture, drinking on my deck, and treating my hard-earned property as their personal resort. The final clip showed Kenneth accidentally knocking over and breaking a ceramic vase my grandmother had given me before her passing. The violation left me breathless. I texted Diana immediately. "We need to talk about you using my lakehouse without permission." Her response came quickly, not with apology but indignation. "You promised we could use it any time. Stop being so selfish." I had made no such promise. This blatant gaslighting infuriated me further. The next family dinner became the stage for confrontation. I arrived determined to address the unauthorized use of my property directly and establish clear consequences. "The security cameras showed you at my lake house 3 weekends ago," I stated, trying to keep my voice steady. "You never asked permission or even told me you were going." Diana rolled her eyes dramatically. "You always make such a big deal out of everything. You said family could use it." "When it is scheduled and approved by me," I clarified. "You know the rules we agreed upon." Kenneth interjected. "You are being ridiculous. We took good care of the place." "Except for breaking Grandma's vase," I countered. His face flushed. "That was an accident. We were going to replace it." "But you never told me about it." "I found out by watching security footage." My mother placed a hand on my arm. "Polly, perhaps you are overreacting. Family should be able to enjoy the lake house without so much formality." The betrayal deepened as I realized my parents knew about these unauthorized visits. "Did you know they were using my house without permission?" My father looked uncomfortable but nodded. "We thought you were being unnecessarily strict with the scheduling system." The unified front against me was shocking. My property rights, my boundaries, my very reasonable expectations of respect were being dismissed by the people who should have supported me most. "This stops now," I declared, my voice finally breaking. "I am changing the locks next week. No one uses my house without my explicit permission." Diana laughed. "Changing the locks on your family? Real mature, Polly." What is not mature is entering someone's home without permission, I responded. That is called trespassing. The word hung heavy in the air. My mother gasped as if I had uttered a profanity. Trespassing is for strangers, not family, my father said sternly. You are taking this too far. That weekend, I drove to the lake house and had all the locks replaced with a high security system. I also upgraded my security cameras to cover more angles and installed motion sensor lights. The expense was significant but necessary for protecting my property. When Diana learned about the new security measures, she unleashed her fury via text. Congratulations on officially becoming the most materialistic person in this family. Grandma and Grandpa would be ashamed of how you have forgotten family values. This particular barb stung deeply because it weaponized my relationship with my grandparents. They had taught me about respecting others' property and establishing healthy boundaries, values that seemed lost on Diana. The following months brought increasingly uncomfortable family gatherings. Thanksgiving featured Diana giving a prayer about gratitude for family who share their blessings while staring pointedly at me. Christmas included passive-aggressive gifts, a book on curing greed, and a welcome mat reading Mi casa es su casa. My brother Kenneth attempted a more direct approach, cornering me during a family birthday celebration. Diana is really hurt by your lack of trust, he said. We all are. The lake house should be something that brings the family together, not drives us apart. Trust is earned, I replied. Using my home without permission broke that trust. The confrontations and tension became so unbearable that I began withdrawing from family gatherings. Each interaction left me emotionally drained and questioning my own sanity. Was I being unreasonable for wanting basic respect for my property and boundaries? Audrey assured me I was not. Your family is gaslighting you, she said during one of our regular coffee dates. Stand your ground. Your house, your rules. Her unwavering support provided the validation I desperately needed during this confusing time. While my biological family seemed determined to undermine my boundaries, my chosen family of friends recognized and respected them. Little did I know that the worst betrayal was yet to come, one that would force me to take actions I never imagined necessary against my own flesh and blood. 6 months passed with minimal contact between me and my family. Our interactions became limited to obligatory text messages on birthdays and brief tense conversations during unavoidable family events. This distance, while painful, provided some emotional relief. I refocused my energy on my real estate business and friendships with people who respected my boundaries. Then came the social media posts that shattered this fragile peace. A distant cousin tagged Diana in photos captioned "Amazing weekend at the lake house." The images showed people I barely recognized lounging on my deck, using my kayaks and toasting with wine glasses in my kitchen. I immediately called Diana, who sent me to voicemail. Kenneth's phone went unanswered as well. My parents claimed ignorance when confronted, though their nervous tones suggested otherwise. Within days, more evidence accumulated. Another relative posted a thank you to Diana for hosting such a wonderful family reunion, with images clearly taken at my property. A childhood friend messaged me asking if the lake house rental offer from my sister was legitimate because the price seemed too good to be true. Rental offer. My stomach clenched at the implication that Diana was not just using my property without permission, but potentially profiting from it. The final confirmation came from my neighbors at the lake, an elderly couple named Josephine and Walter, who lived there year-round. Josephine called one Tuesday morning, her voice concerned. Polly dear, I wanted to check if everything is all right with your property. There have been large gatherings every weekend this month. Last night the noise continued until 2 in the morning. Walter had to call the local police about the disturbance. My blood ran cold. Josephine, I have not been to the lake house in over a month. Her gasp was audible. Oh my. Then you should know there are people there almost every weekend. Different groups, sometimes families, sometimes younger crowds. We assumed you were renting it out. The violation felt physical, a twisting knot in my stomach that made it difficult to breathe. After thanking Josephine for the information, I sat at my desk staring blankly at my computer screen, unable to focus on work. My assistant Tina noticed my distress. Are you okay? You look like you have seen a ghost. The concern in her voice broke something inside me. Tears flowed as I explained the situation in halting sentences. Tina listened attentively, her expression shifting from concern to outrage. "Polly, this is serious. They are trespassing and potentially committing fraud if they are charging people to stay there. You need to take immediate action." Abaka? She was right, but the thought of confronting my family again, of escalating the conflict, further filled me with dread. My work performance had already suffered from the emotional toll of family tensions. Several clients had commented on my distraction during important meetings, and I had narrowly avoided losing a significant listing due to missing details in the paperwork. Yet doing nothing was no longer an option. After consulting with Audrey, I made a decision. That Friday afternoon, instead of attending the networking event on my calendar, I packed an overnight bag and began the 3-hour drive to my lake house. The journey north on Interstate 75 gave me too much time to ruminate. Memories surfaced of childhood fishing trips with my father, teenage bonfires with friends, and the proud moment when I first unlocked the door as the official owner of my lake house. These happy recollections now felt tainted by recent events. As I turned onto the private road leading to my property, the setting sun cast long shadows through the pine trees. In different circumstances, I would have appreciated the beauty of golden light on water visible through the foliage. Instead, my attention fixed on the collection of unfamiliar vehicles crowding my driveway and lining the road. I counted 8 cars and an SUV as I parked behind the last vehicle in line. Music thumped from inside the house, and laughter carried across the yard. Through the large front windows, I could see silhouettes of people moving about, at least a dozen individuals enjoying themselves in my home. With shaking hands, I retrieved my house keys and approached the front door. The potted plants that normally flanked the entrance had been moved to make room for a cooler overflowing with ice and beer bottles. A handwritten sign taped to the door read, "Lakehouse Summer Bash 2025 with Diana's phone number listed for questions or contributions." My key failed to work in the lock. Confused, I tried again, jiggling the key and applying more pressure. Nothing. The lock had been changed. I knocked firmly then, with increasing force, when no one answered. Finally, I resorted to pounding and calling out, "Hello, this is Polly the homeowner." The music volume decreased slightly. Faces appeared at windows, curious and then alarmed. I recognized my cousin Jessica peering through the curtains before quickly disappearing. Several long minutes passed before footsteps approached the door. Diana opened it just wide enough to reveal her face, her body blocking any view or access to the interior. "Polly, what are you doing here?" Her voice carried both surprise and annoyance. "This is my house," I stated, attempting to keep my voice steady. "What are all these people doing here? And why does my key not work?" She stepped onto the porch, pulling the door closed behind her. "We are having a small family gathering. You should have called if you were planning to come." The absurdity of her statement momentarily stunned me. "I do not need to call before coming to my own property." "Diana, you need to tell everyone to leave immediately." "That is not happening," she replied, crossing her arms. "We have people who traveled from out of state for this reunion. You cannot just show up and demand everyone leave." A reunion I was not invited to at my own house. My voice rose despite my efforts to remain calm. "How did you even get in? I changed the locks." A flicker of guilt crossed her face before her expression hardened again. "Kenneth made copies of your keys before you changed the locks. We have been using those to access the house." The premeditated nature of their actions hit me like a physical blow. They had anticipated my boundary setting and actively circumvented it. "That is illegal, Diana. You are trespassing." "Oh, please," she scoffed. "Stop being so dramatic. Family cannot trespass on family property." I took a deep breath, trying a different approach. "Look, I understand wanting to use the lake house, but there are proper ways to ask. This deception, these parties without my knowledge changing my locks, it crosses every reasonable boundary." "Boundaries," she repeated mockingly. "All you care about is your precious property and your boundaries. What about family loyalty? What about sharing what you have?" Before I could respond, Kenneth appeared behind her, swaying slightly, a beer bottle dangling from his fingers. His eyes widened upon seeing me. "Polly, hey sis." His words slurred together. "Come to join the party." No, Kenneth, I came to my house that you have been illegally entering. His jovial expression faltered. Do not start that again. We are just enjoying the place when you are not using it anyway. No harm done. No harm, I gestured to the overflowing trash bags visible on the deck. The cigarette butts scattered across my carefully maintained lawn. The unfamiliar dent in the garage door. You have changed my locks and apparently been hosting parties here regularly. More family members gathered behind them, now peering curiously at the confrontation unfolding on the porch. I spotted my cousin Jessica filming with her phone, my uncle Robert looking uncomfortable, and my Aunt Elizabeth whispering to someone just out of view. Just go away, Polly, Diana hissed. Come back tomorrow when everyone is gone if you want to inspect your precious house. Right now you are embarrassing yourself. I am not leaving, I insisted, attempting to step past her toward the door. This is my property. Diana placed a hand firmly on my shoulder, pushing me back. There is no room for you here, Polly. Sleep in your car if you need to stay so badly. The cruelty of her words, delivered in front of an audience of family members, left me speechless. I looked past her to see my parents standing in the hallway, witnessing everything but making no move to intervene. Mom, Dad, I called out, hoping for some support, some recognition of the wrongness of this situation. They exchanged glances, but remained silent, complicit in their inaction. Let me in, I demanded, finding my voice again. This is my house, purchased with my money in my name. Diana laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. Your money. You used Grandma and Grandpa's inheritance for the down payment. That money was meant for all of us to benefit from, not just you. I used my portion of the inheritance, Diana. The same amount you spent on your luxury SUV that you crashed 3 months later. The difference is, I invested mine. And now you will not share that investment with your own family, she countered. How selfish can you be? Kenneth pushed the door wider, stepping onto the porch. His breath reeked of alcohol. Come on, Polly, do not be such a killjoy. Everyone is having a great time. Everyone except the actual homeowner, who was not invited and is being kept outside, I pointed out. By now, a small crowd had formed behind them. I recognized extended family members. I only saw at major holidays some looking uncomfortable, others openly curious about the drama unfolding. This is ridiculous, I continued. You copied my keys illegally before I changed the locks, then installed your own locks to keep me out of my own property. Do you realize how insane that sounds? Diana's expression hardened. What is insane is showing up unannounced and expecting everyone to leave because you suddenly decided you want to use your house. I should not need to announce myself at my own property. And yes, when people are trespassing, they should leave immediately. Kenneth rolled his eyes dramatically. Always with the trespassing talk. Get over yourself, Polly. Through the doorway, I could see my cousin Jessica holding her phone up, clearly recording the confrontation. The humiliation burned through me, knowing this private family conflict would likely be shared across social media platforms within hours. Jessica, stop filming this right now, I called out. She smirked, but continued recording. Diana made no attempt to stop her, seemingly pleased to have the confrontation documented. I spotted my parents again, still standing in the background, watching silently. Mom, Dad, are you really okay with this? With your children changing the locks on my house and refusing to let me in? My father cleared his throat, finally speaking. Polly, perhaps tonight is not the best time to resolve this. Everyone has been drinking and enjoying themselves. Why not come back tomorrow when things are calmer? His response stunned me. So you are taking their side. You think it is acceptable for them to lock me out of my own house? My mother stepped forward slightly. No one is taking sides, dear. We just think this confrontation is unnecessary. Diana and Kenneth arranged this gathering weeks ago. Without my knowledge or permission, I emphasized. In my house, to which they have no legal right. Diana rolled her eyes. There she goes with the legal talk again. Always so formal and cold about everything. Because this is a legal issue, I insisted. You are trespassing. You have illegally copied keys, changed locks, and are using property that does not belong to you. It should belong to all of us, Diana shot back. Grandma and Grandpa would have wanted their money to benefit everyone, not just you. Then they would have established a family trust, not left individual inheritances, I argued. They trusted each of us to use our portions responsibly. Kenneth laughed. And your idea of responsible is hoarding a lake house and never letting family use it. I have hosted dozens of family gatherings here, I reminded him. I only asked for basic respect for my property and advanced planning. Which was unnecessary and controlling, Diana interjected. The circular nature of the argument was getting us nowhere. I took a deep breath and tried a different approach. I understand you want to use the lake house. I am not opposed to family enjoying it. But this deception, these unauthorized parties, changing my locks, it violates trust at the most basic level. Diana stepped closer, her voice lowering to a harsh whisper. You know what violates trust. Keeping what should be a family resource all to yourself. Acting like you are better than everyone because you made different choices with your inheritance. Different choices that you now want to benefit from, I pointed out. She pushed me then, not hard enough to make me fall, but with enough force that I had to step back to maintain balance. Just leave, Polly. No one wants you here right now. The physical contact shocked me. Diana and I had our differences over the years, but we had never resorted to physical confrontation. The boundary had been crossed literally and figuratively. Do not touch me again, I warned, my voice shaking with anger and hurt. Kenneth stepped between us, his stance unsteady from alcohol. Maybe you should go, Polly. Come back tomorrow when everyone is gone. I am not leaving my own property. Diana laughed again. What are you going to do? Sleep on the porch. There is no room inside. Every bed and couch is taken. I will sleep in my own bed in my own house, I insisted. No, you will not, she stated firmly. We have changed the locks, remember. There is no room for you here. Sleep in your car if you have to stay so badly. The rejection delivered so coldly in front of an audience of family members felt like a physical wound. I looked around at the faces, watching this confrontation, searching for some ally, some voice of reason. Most averted their eyes, unwilling to involve themselves. My cousin Jessica continued filming, a small smile playing at her lips. My Uncle Robert looked uncomfortable but said nothing. My Aunt Elizabeth whispered something to the person beside her, both of them glancing at me with what looked like pity. And my parents, the people who should have been mediating this conflict, stood silent and immobile, their inaction. A betrayal as painful as Diana's words. Fine, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. You win tonight. But this is far from over. I turned and walked back to my car, humiliation burning through me. Tears threatened, but I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. As I reached my vehicle, I heard laughter resume from the house, the party continuing as if the confrontation had been merely a momentary interruption in their festivities. Sitting in my car, I watched as Diana and Kenneth returned inside, closing the door on me both literally and symbolically. The casual cruelty of their actions, the completeness of my rejection from what was legally my own space, overwhelmed me. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel and finally allowed the tears to come. The tears lasted only minutes before something shifted inside me. A lifetime of accommodating my family, of second-guessing my own needs and boundaries to keep the peace had led to this moment of utter disrespect. The hurt began crystallizing into resolve. I called Audrey, my voice still shaky but determined. She answered on the second ring. Hey, what is up? I thought you were heading to the lake house tonight. I am at the lake house, I replied. Sitting in my car because my family will not let me in. What are you serious? I explained the situation, detailing the copied keys, changed locks, and Diana's cruel rejection. Polly, this is beyond family drama, Audrey said firmly. This is illegal. They have essentially stolen your property. What should I do? I asked, feeling oddly calm now that I had begun considering concrete actions rather than dwelling on emotional wounds. Document everything, she advised. Take photos, videos, write down exactly what happened and who was there. Then call the police and report them for trespassing. Call the police on my own family. The idea still felt extreme despite everything. Would you hesitate if strangers broke into your house, changed the locks, and refused to let you in? This is the same situation legally speaking. She was right. I had been allowing emotional entanglement to cloud my judgment about what was fundamentally a property rights issue. After ending the call with Audrey, I began researching property laws on my phone. Michigan statutes were clear, unauthorized entry into a dwelling without the owner's permission constituted breaking and entering regardless of family relationship. Changing locks on property you did not own was also illegal. With growing certainty, I called a 24-hour emergency locksmith. The dispatcher promised someone would arrive within 45 minutes. Next, I documented the scene, taking photos of the cars parked in my driveway, the party sign with Diana's phone number, and the beer bottles scattered across my lawn. When the locksmith arrived, a middle-aged man named Carl, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, I explained my situation. I own this property, but family members have changed the locks without my permission. I need documentation of this unauthorized change before I have you replace the locks. Carl examined the door. This is definitely not a professional job. Looks like they bought a basic lock set from a hardware store and installed it themselves. I can document this for you and then install new high-security locks if you would like. Please do, I said, relief washing through me at having an objective professional verify what I already knew. While Carl worked, I called the non-emergency police line. The dispatcher listened carefully to my explanation. An officer will be there shortly, ma'am. Please wait in your vehicle until they arrive. 20 minutes later, a police cruiser pulled up beside my car. Two officers stepped out, approaching me with professional courtesy. Good evening. I am Officer Lawrence, and this is Officer Jenkins. We understand you have a trespassing situation. I explained the circumstances as calmly and factually as possible, showing them the property deed on my phone and the locksmith's documentation of the unauthorized lock change. The individuals inside are family members who copied my keys without permission, then changed the locks when I upgraded my security. They are now refusing me entry to my own property and have been using it without authorization for months. Officer Lawrence nodded. We will speak with them. Please wait here. The officers approached the house, knocking authoritatively on the door. Through the car window, I watched as Diana answered, her confident expression faltering at the sight of police uniforms. The music inside immediately went silent. Diana's body language shifted from defensive to ingratiating as she spoke with the officers. I could not hear her words, but her gestures became animated, likely spinning some version of events that cast her as the reasonable party. Several minutes passed before Officer Lawrence beckoned me to join them. As I approached the porch, I noticed many party attendees peering anxiously through windows. Kenneth stood beside Diana, looking considerably more sober than earlier. Miss Reynolds, Officer Lawrence addressed me. These individuals claim they had permission to use this property. Is that accurate? Absolutely not, I stated firmly. I have explicitly told them multiple times they are not to enter my property without my permission. They admitted to me earlier tonight that they copied my keys before I changed the locks, then installed their own locks to keep me out. Diana attempted to interrupt. It is a family misunderstanding. Polly has always let us use the lakehouse. That is false, I countered. I allowed scheduled, approved visits until they began abusing that privilege. I never gave permission for these gatherings, especially after changing the locks specifically to prevent unauthorized entry. Officer Jenkins turned to Diana. Do you have documentation showing you have legal right to be on this property? We are family, she replied, as if that answered the question. That is not a legal right of entry, Officer Jenkins stated. Do you have your name on the deed, a lease agreement, or written permission from the owner to be here? Diana's confident facade cracked slightly. No, but... Then I need to inform you that you and all guests need to vacate the premises immediately, Officer Jenkins continued. The property owner has not granted you permission to be here. My father stepped forward, then finally finding his voice. Officers, this is a simple misunderstanding between siblings. Surely we can resolve this without making everyone leave in the middle of the night. Sir, the legal owner of this property has asked unauthorized individuals to leave, Officer Lawrence explained patiently. Your options are to comply voluntarily or face potential trespassing charges. The reality of the situation finally seemed to dawn on Diana. Her expression shifted from indignation to calculation. "This is all a misunderstanding," she said, her voice taking on a tearful quality that I recognized from childhood manipulations. "Polly said we could use the lake house when she was not here. We just misunderstood the arrangement." "That is not true," I stated calmly. "I never gave such permission, especially after finding out you had been entering without my knowledge. The unauthorized lock change proves this was deliberate, not a misunderstanding." Diana turned to the officers, tears now flowing freely. "Officers, we have elderly relatives here and people who have been drinking. It would be dangerous to make everyone leave tonight." Officer Lawrence considered this. "How many people are currently in the house?" Savantain Kenneth volunteered. "And how many have been consuming alcohol?" "Most of the adults," my father admitted. The officers conferred briefly before Officer Lawrence addressed the group. "Here is what is going to happen. Anyone who has not been drinking may leave immediately with their belongings. Those who have been drinking have two options: find a sober driver to take them elsewhere, or remain here until morning, but stay in the common areas only. The property owner will have full access to her bedroom and personal spaces." Diana began to protest, but Officer Jenkins raised a hand to silence her. "This is a courtesy to prevent impaired driving. At first light, everyone must vacate the premises, unless the owner specifically invites them to stay." The compromise was fair, prioritizing safety while still respecting my property rights. I nodded my agreement. "Thank you, officers. I appreciate your assistance." The next hour passed in awkward activity as sober family members gathered their belongings and departed. My parents, visibly embarrassed, quietly collected their things and left without making eye contact with me. Those who had been drinking too heavily to drive safely huddled in the living room, their festive mood thoroughly dampened. Diana and Kenneth remained, both having consumed too much alcohol to drive legally. Diana maintained a stony silence while Kenneth made clumsy attempts at reconciliation. "Come on, Polly, we were just trying to enjoy the lake house," he slurred. "No need to get the police involved." I ignored him instead, focusing on working with Carl the locksmith to install new high-security locks on all exterior doors. The expense was considerable for after-hours emergency service, but the peace of mind was worth every penny. Before the officers departed, I thanked them again for their professional handling of the situation. "You might want to consider filing a formal complaint," Officer Lawrence suggested quietly. "Document the unauthorized entry and lock changes. It could be important if similar issues arise in the future." I nodded, taking his card with contact information. For the first time since arriving at my lake house that evening, I felt a sense of control returning. I had acted to protect what was rightfully mine, and the system had worked as it should. As I finally entered my own bedroom and locked the door behind me, a strange mixture of emotions washed over me. Relief mingled with grief. For relationships that might never be the same again. Yet beneath it all ran a current of quiet strength. I had stood my ground. I had advocated for myself and my boundaries. Whatever came next, I would face it with the same resolve. The morning after the confrontation brought tense silence as the remaining family members gathered their belongings and departed under my watchful eye. Diana left without a word, Kenneth, with only a mumbled "This is not over" that sounded more habitual than threatening. Once alone, I conducted a thorough inspection of my property. The damage was considerable, not catastrophic, but certainly disrespectful. Red wine stains marred my cream-colored carpet. Cigarette burns dotted the wooden deck railing despite my strict no-smoking policy. The guest bathroom toilet had overflowed at some point, causing water damage to the floor tiles. My kitchen cabinets contained unfamiliar food items, some expired, and my refrigerator held unlabeled containers with contents I did not dare investigate. I photographed everything, creating a detailed inventory of damages with estimated repair costs. The exercise was painful but necessary, transforming emotional wounds into concrete evidence. 3 days later, I sat across from attorney Lawrence Reynolds, no relation, in his downtown Grand Rapids office. A distinguished man in his early 60s with salt and pepper hair and reading glasses perched on his nose, he reviewed my documentation with methodical attention. Miss Brennan, based on what you have shown me, your family members have committed several actionable offenses, he explained, removing his glasses. Unauthorized entry, property damage, changing locks without permission, and potentially fraud if they were indeed charging people to stay at your property. What are my options? I asked, still conflicted about taking legal action against my own family. You could pursue criminal charges for breaking and entering, though the family relationship complicates matters, he admitted. More practically, I recommend a civil approach. We send formal cease and desist letters to all involved parties, itemizing the damages and demanding reimbursement. We can also file for a restraining order if the harassment continues. The words restraining order made my stomach clench. How had relations with my own family deteriorated to this point? Yet, as Attorney Reynolds walked me through the evidence, the pattern of escalating violations became undeniable. What began as overstaying welcomes had progressed to unauthorized entry, property damage, lock changing, and ultimately locking me out of my own home. Without formal consequences, what would prevent further escalation? Let us proceed with the cease and desist letters, I decided, and I want to understand the process for restraining orders should they become necessary. The following weeks brought predictable backlash. The cease and desist letters formally documenting the unauthorized use of my property and demanding payment for damages triggered explosive responses. Diana called within hours of receiving hers, her voice shrill with indignation. A legal letter. Seriously? Polly. You are threatening legal action against your own sister. I am requesting compensation for damages to my property. I clarified, maintaining the calm, factual tone Attorney Reynolds had advised. The letter simply documents what has already occurred. We are family, she shouted, as if repeating this mantra somehow negated property laws. You do not send legal threats to family. Family does not break into family members' homes, change their locks, and refuse to let them enter their own property, I countered. She hung up without responding. Within hours, my social media accounts flooded with notifications, as extended family members chose sides in the escalating conflict. Aunt Elizabeth posted a lengthy diatribe about younger generations forgetting family values. Uncle Robert shared vague statements about greed destroying relationships. Cousin Jessica, true to form, created a series of social media posts heavily edited to portray me as the aggressor. During the lakehouse confrontation, conveniently omitting the context of unauthorized entry and changed locks. My parents called daily, their messages pleading for reconciliation without accountability. Polly, please withdraw those legal letters, my mother begged. Diana is absolutely devastated. This is tearing the family apart. Diana's actions tore the family apart, I responded. The letters merely document those actions. My father tried a different approach. Your grandparents would be heartbroken to see legal threats exchanged between their grandchildren. This attempt to leverage my beloved grandparents' memory backfired. Grandpa Robert taught me about respecting property rights and personal boundaries, I reminded him. He would be appalled at what Diana and Kenneth did and disappointed that you and Mom enabled it. The most surprising development came when I discovered, through utility bills and neighbor statements, that Diana had been allowing friends to use my lake house for weekend getaways in exchange for contributions to cover maintenance costs. These contributions, funneled through her personal Venmo account, had never been used for property upkeep. She had effectively been running an unauthorized rental operation with my property. When confronted with this evidence, Kenneth attempted an awkward reconciliation over coffee. Look, things got out of hand, he admitted, staring into his cup rather than meeting my eyes. Diana took it too far with the lock changing and the parties. But sending legal letters is extreme, Polly. We are still family. Being family does not grant you the right to use my property without permission, I stated. Would you break into a stranger's house and change their locks? Of course not, but this is different. It is not different under the law, I pointed out, and it should not be different morally either. Families should respect each other's boundaries more, not less. Kenneth shook his head. I want to fix this, but I cannot take full responsibility for what happened. Diana organized most of it, and you escalated by involving police and lawyers. His unwillingness to acknowledge the fundamental violation frustrated me. Kenneth, I called the police because I was locked out of my own home. That is not an escalation, it is an appropriate response to being denied access to my legal property. Our conversation ended in stalemate with Kenneth, unwilling to accept full accountability while still expecting complete forgiveness. Diana's response proved more troubling. Rather than attempting reconciliation, she escalated her campaign against me. She contacted my real estate clients, portraying me as unstable and vindictive. She showed up at my workplace, creating scenes in the lobby until security escorted her out. She left threatening voicemails promising I would regret my legal actions against her. Each incident was carefully documented and added to the growing file Attorney Reynolds maintained. When Diana began parking outside my condominium at night, headlights shining into my bedroom window until dawn, we finally proceeded with the restraining order application. The court hearing arrived on a rainy Tuesday morning. I sat beside Attorney Reynolds' stomach churning with anxiety about publicly airing our family conflict. Diana arrived with her own attorney, a young man with slicked back hair and an aggressive demeanor that matched her own. Judge Patricia Wilson, a stern woman in her 50s with piercing eyes and no-nonsense demeanor, reviewed the documentation before addressing the court. This case involves alleged harassment following a property dispute between siblings, she summarized. Miss Brennan, please explain the basis for your restraining order request. Standing on shaky legs, I detailed the progression of events from unauthorized entry to changed locks to Diana's escalating harassment following the cease and desist letter. Your Honor, my sister has contacted my clients attempting to damage my professional reputation. She has appeared at my workplace, causing disturbances requiring security intervention. She has parked outside my home at night, shining headlights into my windows and preventing me from sleeping. Her voicemails have included statements that I would regret taking legal action, which I perceived as threats. Diana's attorney attempted to paint the situation as a simple misunderstanding about shared family property, but Judge Wilson's expression grew increasingly skeptical as she reviewed the evidence. Miss Diana Brennan, the judge addressed my sister directly. Do you dispute changing the locks on property you do not legally own? Diana shifted uncomfortably. We believed we had implicit permission to use the property. That does not answer my question, Judge Wilson pressed. Did you change the locks on property legally belonging to your sister? Yes, but... And did you refuse her entry to her own property when she arrived on the date in question? Diana's attorney attempted to interject, but Judge Wilson silenced him with a raised hand. Yes, Diana admitted reluctantly. And have you been contacting her clients and appearing at her workplace since receiving the cease and desist letter? I was trying to explain our side of the story, Diana protested. Judge Wilson's expression hardened. Miss Brennan, property rights are fundamental in our legal system. Family relationships do not supersede these rights. The documentation presented shows a clear pattern of boundary violations escalating to harassment. The restraining order was granted, prohibiting Diana from contacting me, approaching my home or workplace, or communicating with my clients. Additionally, the judge strongly advised Diana to comply with the cease and desist letter regarding property damages. Family disputes are painful, Judge Wilson acknowledged before concluding the hearing. But property laws exist to protect all citizens regardless of familial relationships. I strongly encourage both parties to seek family counseling to address the underlying issues that led to this situation. As we left the courthouse, I noticed my parents sitting in the back row of the gallery. They had attended without announcing themselves, their expressions unreadable as they watched the proceedings. They slipped out before I could approach them, leaving me wondering which version of events they now believed. The restraining order marked a turning point in our family dynamics. The legal consequences rendered the conflict real in ways that emotional appeals had not. The fantasy that family ties somehow negated property rights and personal boundaries had been officially dispelled by judicial authority. That evening, I sat alone on my condominium balcony, watching sunset colors paint the Grand Rapids skyline. The victory felt hollow, tinged with grief for relationships damaged, perhaps beyond repair. Yet beneath the sadness ran a current of quiet validation. My boundaries had been recognized and upheld by the legal system. My right to protect what was mine had been affirmed. Whatever came next, I would face it with the knowledge that standing up for myself had been the right choice, however painful the process. 6 months passed, bringing seasonal change to Michigan, as summer warmth faded into autumn crispness and then winter's first snows. During this time, my lake house underwent its own transformation. I hired professionals to repair the damage left by months of unauthorized use, replacing stained carpets, refinishing the scratched hardwood floors, and repainting walls marred by careless guests. More importantly, I established a new relationship with my property. Working with a security company, I installed a comprehensive system including cameras with remote monitoring capabilities, motion sensors, and smartphone alerts for any unusual activity. My neighbors, Josephine and Walter, became unofficial property guardians, calling me immediately if unfamiliar vehicles appeared in my driveway. "We should have spoken up sooner," Josephine admitted during one of our now regular phone check-ins. "We suspected something was not right with all those gatherings, but we did not want to intrude on family matters." "I appreciate your help now," I assured her. "Knowing you are keeping an eye on things gives me such peace of mind." The civil case against my family members reached settlement 3 months after the restraining order hearing. Diana, Kenneth, and my parents collectively agreed to pay for property damages, though the process required multiple mediation sessions and tense negotiations through our respective attorneys. The financial restitution, while necessary, did little to repair the emotional damage inflicted. The first sign of genuine reconciliation came unexpectedly through my father. He appeared at my office one afternoon in early December, looking older and more subdued than I remembered. "Do you have a few minutes to talk?" he asked, his voice lacking its usual authoritative tone. Over coffee in a nearby cafe, he struggled to find the right words before finally speaking from the heart. "Polly, I owe you an apology. A real one, not just words to smooth things over. Your mother and I failed you by not respecting your boundaries and by enabling Diana and Kenneth's behavior." The admission stunned me into silence. My father had always been the family peacekeeper, seeking compromise rather than acknowledging fault. "What changed your perspective?" I asked finally. He sighed, turning his coffee cup slowly between his palms. "Seeing the judge so clearly identify what happened as wrong was part of it. But mostly, it was watching how this conflict affected everyone. Diana became increasingly bitter, Kenneth withdrawn, your mother anxious and depressed, and you simply disappeared from our lives because we made it unsafe for you to be present." Tears pricked my eyes at this unexpected validation. I realized, he continued, that by trying to avoid conflict with Diana, I allowed her to violate your rights and ultimately damaged our entire family. I should have stood up for what was right, not what was easy. His apology, delivered without excuses or expectations, opened a door to healing I had thought permanently closed. Over subsequent weeks, my mother also reached out, her apology less direct but sincere in its own way. "I miss you, Polly," she said during our first tentative lunch together. "I should have supported you more. Diana can be so forceful that it seemed easier to go along, but that was wrong of me." Rebuilding trust with my parents progressed slowly but steadily. We established new patterns of interaction based on mutual respect rather than obligation. They never presumed access to my lake house, but expressed genuine appreciation when invited for specific scheduled visits. Kenneth's path to reconciliation proved more straightforward than I anticipated. Following several months of therapy, he requested a meeting, arriving with a journal filled with reflections. "My therapist suggested I write down all the ways I violated your boundaries," he explained, pushing the journal toward me. Reading through it myself was enlightening. "I kept justifying my actions because you are my sister, but that should have made me more respectful of your property, not less." His genuine remorse and commitment to change allowed us to cautiously rebuild our relationship. Kenneth became scrupulous about asking permission before visiting my properties and respecting my decisions without question. Diana remained the holdout, maintaining her position that family entitlement superseded individual property rights. The restraining order expired after 6 months, but our communication remained limited to necessary family information passed through third parties. While I left the door open for reconciliation, should she acknowledge the fundamental violations, I no longer allowed her absence to overshadow the healing occurring in other relationships. In place of these damaged family bonds, I cultivated a chosen family of friends who respected boundaries naturally, without need for legal enforcement. Audrey remained my steadfast supporter, but new friendships blossomed as well. Weekend gatherings at my lake house took on new joy when shared with people who expressed genuine gratitude for invitations rather than entitlement to access. Professional growth accompanied personal healing. Freed from the constant stress of family boundary violations, my real estate business flourished. I expanded my client base and earned recognition as one of the top producing agents in Western Michigan. The financial success felt particularly validating after Diana's attempts to undermine my professional reputation. Perhaps the most profound change occurred internally. The painful experience of standing alone against my family to protect my boundaries strengthened my sense of self-worth. I developed clarity about acceptable treatment that extended beyond property rights into all relationships. Romantic partnerships, friendships, and professional connections all benefited from my newfound ability to articulate boundaries confidently and maintain them consistently. On the 1-year anniversary of the lake house confrontation, I sat on my dock watching sunset paint the water in shades of gold and pink. The property around me reflected my care and investment restored to its original beauty and enhanced with thoughtful improvements. More importantly, it represented a hard-won victory for self-respect and personal agency. The lessons learned through this painful journey had transformed me in ways I never anticipated. I discovered that sometimes you must be willing to risk family relationships to maintain self-respect. That setting boundaries is not selfish but necessary for genuine connection. That people who truly love you will respect your rights rather than exploit your generosity. And perhaps most importantly, that standing up for yourself often requires courage, but ultimately leads to greater peace than endless accommodation ever could. My phone buzzed with a text from Kenneth asking properly if he might visit the following weekend. I smiled as I typed my affirmative response, appreciating the simple respect conveyed by his question rather than assumption. As darkness settled over the lake, I reflected on the journey from betrayal to resolution. The path had been neither straight nor easy, but it had led me to a place of genuine peace, founded on self-respect, rather than fragile family harmony built on sacrifice of boundaries. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice between keeping the peace and standing up for yourself? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this account of my journey helped you in any way, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more stories about navigating difficult family dynamics and setting healthy boundaries. Share this video with someone who might need encouragement to stand up for themselves. Remember, sometimes the hardest battles lead to the most meaningful victories. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you courage on your own journey toward healthy relationships built on mutual respect.